lovers of the liminal and the weird, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today we are going to dive deep into The Bane of the Black Sword by Michael Moorcock. This is the 5th Elric book and the second to the last. After this, all we have is Stormbringer. These are the 6 books that Tim from Secret Fire Books and Jim from News from the Gelding and myself all set out to read over the second half of 2025, and we are coming to the end. I was supposed to read this in November. I almost got all the way through it in November, but I didn't, and now these videos are coming late. I am reading Stormbringer now. I'm about halfway into the first book in Stormbringer, and so I'll be talking about that within a couple of weeks. But for now, let's jump into The Bane of the Black Sword. This first story in this book, interestingly enough, is the climax to the thread of stories of Elric trying to track down the evil sorcerer Theb Carna, which started all the way back to, I think, Weird of the White Wolf. The last story in Weird of the White Wolf. No, The Vanishing Tower. Nope, it is Weird of the White Wolf. The last story in the Weird of the White Wolf is the introduction of Theb Carna and the love triangle between Queen Yishna, Theb Carna, and Elric is introduced. And then, the Vanishing Tower book, even though it doesn't have the beginning of the Theb Carna story, is all these stories about Elric trying to track down Theb Carna and deal revenge, at which point he never is able to grab that revenge. And the book ends with Theb Carna still living. And then this book, the first story in this book, is about, or is the climax, I guess, of the story of Theb Carna. Elric and Moongloom are hanging out in the opulent city of Bakshan. And they're sitting in a tavern, and there are a bunch of merchants that are trying to get them to, basically, they want to hire Elric and Moongloom as mercenaries to go kill this other merchant who is cornering the market because he's brave enough to go out and get the material and stuff that is needed for whatever products he sells. And you get right away the sense that Elric kind of respects this other merchant, but he finds out that this other merchant is working with Theb Carna and Yishna, and is like, okay, here's my chance to finally get my revenge. So he agrees to be mercenaries for these merchants, even though he obviously doesn't care much for the merchants. So the person that they are hired to kill is Nikorn of Imar, and he's working with Queen Yishna and Theb Carna. So Elric decides to attack, and Theb Carna summons this crazy, weird creature that isn't from this multiverse. He's from another part of the multiverse. And this is like a weird frog demon, slimy frog demon that eats people's souls. Really well written, this part of the book. I really enjoyed this. And Elric fights this beast and is eventually captured. And Theb Carna takes Stormbringer from him, which, of course, Stormbringer is the only thing that keeps Elric's weakness away from him. Without Stormbringer, Elric is unable to really do much, so he becomes this kind of weakling. And Theb Carna, who really loves Queen Yishna, presents Elric to Yishna, and Yishna's like, oh, I'm not interested in Elric anymore. I see that you are the strongest one, Theb Carna. And Theb Carna is so happy with his victory that he's just like, go ahead and go, Elric. Like just let Elric go. He doesn't. He's not going to harm anybody. And unfortunately for Theb Carna, Moongloom and Elric kind of put together a plan. One of the first things they do is they go and find refugees, or maybe this happened before. Sorry if I'm not going in the right order here. They find these refugees of Melniboné. Elric, of course, destroyed the dreaming city of Melniboné way earlier in the books. And this is the first time he goes back and tries to speak with the Melnibians that he basically made homeless, and they've all become kind of their own band of mercenaries. But while he is there, he meets up with his old friend, the Dragon Rider, Devim Tavar. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Devim Tavar. I'm sorry, this did happen earlier. He enlisted the help from these guys earlier, so they've all come to this kind of fortress of this merchant. And then Elric fights this demon and loses Stormbringer, and they come up with this plan, and the plan revolves around Queen Yishna, who secretly still loves Elric, and through her, they're able to get Stormbringer back to Elric, and Elric comes back to fight. The interesting about this plan, of course, is that Theb Carna is tired after the sorcery of calling this demon to fight Elric. So Elric is able to use his own sorcery because Theb Carna is not expecting it, and is able to stop Theb Carna from being able to do anything. What ends up happening is Devim Tavar unfortunately dies. That was sad because he was important in book 1, and Elric promises to spare the life of the merchant, but Stormbringer forces him to kill this merchant. Again, we see the sword has a mind of its own, and that Elric's addiction to the sword only leads to terrible things. And they end up getting a bunch of treasure from the town, and Moongloom and Elric happily leave with the treasure and move on. Next, we have the Forest of Troos, which is this terrifying forest, and he and Moongloom decide to walk deeper into this terrifying haunted forest. And I really love Moongloom. I do. I'm about halfway through the first book of Stormbringer, and Moongloom's not there, and that's really bothering me. So I hope that he shows up in here, because Moongloom is probably my favorite side character. Because Moongloom wants treasure and wants to party and wants to lead an awesome adventuring life, while Elric is like haunted and devastated and always sad. Moongloom's like, yeah, we got some treasure, let's party. So Elric's like, I think we should walk into this forest. And Moongloom's like, can't we maybe just once, not walk into the dark haunted forest, not make the absolute worst choice and just have some fun? But of course it doesn't work that way. So they go into the forest, and they meet a woman named Zaroia. Zaroia has been left behind somehow from the group she was traveling with. They're from Carlac, I think. She's a noblewoman from Carlac, I think. Right away, Elric and Zaroia fall in love. I like romance in books. I really do. Well-written romance is absolutely beautiful. I don't really think... I think Michael Moorcock kind of phoned this one in and was just like, love at first sight, they're perfect, great. And just kind of pushed on, because it was so quick, like it was almost to be expected, that I never really felt any connection between Elric and Zaroia at all. I really didn't. If I have any complaint about this book, it's that Zaroia just feels like she's thrown in, because later she needs to be the crux of this novel, I think. Yeah, it's interesting when somebody's like, and just know he loves her, and she's important to him, without ever showing it. Yeah, I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel it, and that's not a huge thing, but it is something that I did notice. Anyway, they're attacked by a bunch of bandits, bad guys, and they're overpowered and their treasure is taken, but they run off, and Elric's like, hey, we got to go to this kingdom of Org where these guys came from so that we can get some of our treasure back. So they decide to go to this kingdom of Org, and Elric's like, hey, there's a special plant that grows here that's kind of like this drug, that if you take it, you'll be invincible for a few hours. And they're like, awesome. So they all take this drug, and they show up, and they're like, we're gods. And they try to kill him, and they can't kill him because they took this drug, and they're like fooling everybody. Anyway, this Kingdom of Org is really interesting. It's like this dark, gritty empire. There's a king, and then the king's brother, I think, is like this blind old wise man, and then they talk about a third king, which is the king under the mountain. This is the king that's been dead for years with his army, buried under the mountain. And they get embroiled in this crazy plot that this blind brother has to release the king under the mountain, which eventually they are betrayed, and Zaroia is kept captive. I think Elric is like chained to these pillars on a hill, and Zaroia is going to be the sacrifice that will bring back the king under the mountain. Elric escapes, calling on Arioch, of course. It's really interesting because part of me is like, Arioch works as this weird deus ex machina, but also I think that it's part of how the sorcery in this world works. This is a universe where, in order for sorcery to work, you have to call upon something bigger than yourself in order for the spell to go off. So I think a lot of people are like, why is Elric always using these get out of jail free cards from his weird gods that he is connected to? But I think it's more than that. I think it's the sorcery system. I think anybody that does sorcery has to do the same thing that Elric's doing, and I've always found it cool. I haven't had any problems with the magic in the Elric universe. I've really enjoyed it. So all the dead come filing out of the tomb. Somehow it doesn't. The spell goes off, but the blind brother is killed by Elric. But I think her blood falls in a certain area, and it wakes the king under the mountain. And all these undead come into the main room where all these people were partying, and Elric, and I think it's Moongloom's idea, just decides to just burn everything, and they do. They just burn everything and run off. Yeah, really fun story. This one was a highlight for me. The next story, Zaroia and Elric marry, and Elric gives up Stormbringer. It's really interesting because these points that I think should be really major, Michael Moorcock has a tendency to write past an exposition super quick, right? Like I never thought, as I was reading the Elric Saga, and Elric's going to get married. Like, that's the last thing I ever imagined would occur at all as I was reading these. He seemed like the least marriable candidate of them all. So we don't see any of the wedding or anything. We just jump forward, and suddenly Elric is ruling Carlac with Zaroia, and he has put Stormbringer in the barracks, the weapon barracks of the town here, and has promised Zaroia that he'll never use Stormbringer again. And that's where we start. And Moongloom's gone. Moongloom's gone to his old city, and so they're not really hanging out anymore. But there's a new threat that comes from the east. It's the Flamebringer's horde. And the Flamebringer is grabbing all the people. I'm not able to find the name of this city. It was a city that Elric visited a long time ago, where they weaponized poverty. It was a city of beggars and thieves. And this city is, all these beggars and thieves have been brought together by a man named Terran Gashtek, who is the Flamebringer. And he's just been destroying cities in the east in a terrible kind of rape and pillage sort of way. Just awful, awful person. And the reason that he's doing so well is because there is a sorcerer named Drenij Bara. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Drenij Bara, who is this powerful, powerful sorcerer who put his soul into a cat for safekeeping. But unfortunately, the Flamebringer found this out, got the cat, and is keeping the cat prisoner. If he kills that cat, then the sorcerer Drenij Bara will die and he doesn't want that. So he is aiding the Flamebringer in this terrible march of destruction. So Elric has to grab Stormbringer, which he promised he wouldn't do, but he needs to in order to save this problem. And what he and Moongloom do is they decide to join the Flamebringer's march to try and get this cat off of him. They eventually do steal the cat off of him, but he finds out, and the cat gets away, and Elric eventually has to call on the cat god, which I was super happy to know that there was a cat god in these universes. So he calls this cat god, who finds this cat, and eventually the cat, as the soul is taken from the cat and put back into Drenij Bara, and Elric and Drenij are able to fight and stop this march of the Flamebringer. Interestingly enough, they have been talking about the fact that Melniboneans had dragons from the first book. And we finally see some of these dragons awake in this book. And Elric even rides one. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so he tries to throw the sword away from him, Stormbringer. But again, Stormbringer ends up, I don't know if this happened earlier or if this happens at this point. It might have happened earlier. But anyway, Stormbringer ends up back in the barracks. And is waiting for him. But Elric is again able to return to Carlac and his retirement and his life with Zaroia. And the last story in this that we get is not about Elric, it's about Rakir the Red, who is an archer friend from earlier books of Elric. And this is the story of Tanalorn. This is the story of Tanalorn, which is this fabled city where people who have served Chaos Lords or in other ways have things that they're kind of running away from that they can go to and find respite. And this city is under attack again. And this time, Rakir the Red decides to go save it. And I really loved this story because he had to go see some people, something the Greys, in order to save the city. And most of this story is him going through these gates into different worlds or different parts of the multiverse. And each city is weirder and weirder. The first one that they walk into, I think, is this place where everybody's happy and dancing all the time. But it's kind of like a curse. That you'll happy and dance yourself to death. And he keeps going through these gates to end up eventually talking to the Greys and be able to save Tanalorn. And this, to me, felt the most like the stories from the beginning of this series that I loved the most. So I feel like this was kind of a return to, but again, I can't say return because these stories were written in a completely different order than I'm reading them in. So this epilogue could have been written as like the third Elric story or the 13th. I have no idea. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this story. And of course, he's able to save Tanalorn. And now I've started reading Stormbringer and I noticed a difference right away. I do believe that this is the first time that Michael Moorcock sat down to write a full Elric novel. And it's starting out a little war heavy for me. I don't like huge descriptions of battles, and that's what we're getting right now. But I think that everything I've heard says this is just an absolute incredible ending to this series. So I'm really looking forward to that. Again, Moongloom is not in... Is it Moongloom or Moonglum? Have I been saying this wrong the whole time? It's Moonglum. Dang it, I've been saying Moongloom this whole time and it's Moonglum. Sorry about that. Moonglum. I miss Moonglum. I like that character a lot. I like him so much I can't even remember his name. Jeez. These fantasy novels with so many made-up names is very difficult for me sometimes. So, yes, I hope that Moonglum comes back in Stormbringer. I know that he's kind of separated from Elric because Elric retired, basically, with Zaroia. So there you go. That's kind of my deep reading of this book, The Bane of the Black Sword. I enjoyed it, finishing up Stormbringer. and that will complete the Elric Saga for me. There are two other books, two pretty thick novels that I'll eventually read and talk about here. And then there's a seventh Daw book called Elric at the End of Time, which is apparently just a couple of random other Elric stories. So I think I'll try to read all of them so that I've read the entirety of the Elric Saga. All right, thank you very much for watching. If you guys would like to help support the channel, there's the Patreon, which you can join for $5 a month and join our Discord. We have a wonderful community in the Discord. You can go to Bandcamp, where I've released my first record of music that I've made here for the channel. This record is based on the book The House on the Borderland by William Hope Hodgson. I'll put a link down to the Discord and to the album. That's $5. You can get music out of it, and you can help support the channel. And also, recently, the book Weird Frequencies, which I was a part of, just released. And you can grab yourself a copy of that book. You can read the story by me. I haven't written in over 10 years, but I came out of retirement to write a story for that anthology. And also, there's all great booktubers from our corner of booktube. The other story that I read was Jimmy's News from the Gelding, and it was absolutely incredible. So I'll put the link to that in the description as well. You can go grab yourself a book. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.